Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Palantir and its SPAC strategy has been highly controversial over the past couple of weeks as more and more people have been saying that it might not be the best strategy. And I've done a couple of videos on it, trying to analyze it, trying to reprove why it makes a lot of sense. In fact, a lot of the SPACs are actually doing pretty well right now, even though the entire market is hurting and compressing valuations, and that might continue to happen given the SPY has fallen 3% today. Things are not the best for the overall market conditions, which means it's definitely not going to be great for Palantir and definitely not going to be great for SPACs. However, the SPAC thesis is a thesis about growth, innovation, and a thesis around the potential trajectory of these companies being able to utilize Palantir software that is built for 5 years from now, primarily because customers don't understand the problems they're going to have 5 years from now. It is a revolutionary type of product that actually allows you to have insights on your data that most companies don't get. But SPACs do understand this stuff, and they're building their entire products on top of what Foundry is about. I went through an old Karp interview that came out in June 2021, and I think it's worth revisiting what he said about SPACs because I missed this when I watched it. I haven't watched this in many months. And when I heard this part, I was actually driving in the car. It was playing, and when I heard him say, well, the SPAC thesis, and then he went on for about 4 or 5 minutes, really going deep into it, I was like, wait a second, why is anyone worried about the SPAC thesis? The SPAC thesis makes all the sense in the world if you actually understand what they are trying to do, and I think it's so incredibly important to get a sense of what they are trying to do. So let's play this for a little bit. We're going to analyze it while he's talking. I think this is some really, really, really good stuff. If you've been struggling to wrap your head around why they even invested in the SPACs in the first place, if you think they're just buying cheap revenue, and if you're trying to grapple with how you think this is going to help them in their future trajectory. So let's take a listen.
Should that change how we
the SPAC things as an example, I think there's a lot of attention on the SPACs because obviously we're investing in some of the most interesting creative companies in the world. And they're relying on Foundry to get the business to a point where it can really be even more disruptive. But I'll tell you, one of the coolest things, obviously, that it would be hard to notice externally is these people are going to push our product and help us understand. We can't rest on the fact that we're 5 years ahead of people, but tomorrow you're not 5 years ahead. So it's and these people pushing our product and pushing what they're going to do. These are relatively small companies.
So first, 2 quick things there. Number 1, he said these companies are relying on Foundry to get their product to the next level, which is against the mainstream narrative that Palantir is coercing them to buy Foundry and so that, or to give them an equity stake so that they can use the product. There's no coercion between Palantir, hey, please use our product, it's going to work. It's more so, hey, you're a really interesting company. We've got something that could really do good for you. We want to have an equity stake in you because we believe in your potential. Wejo, Lilium, Black Sky, Sarcos Robotics, Tritium Charging, Cellularity. These are amazing companies doing very creative things. Are all 14 of them that they have invested in going to go to the moon? I don't know, and that's very unlikely. But a decent amount of them, if they do well, you're talking about 5, 6, 7 out of the 14 do decently well. Not even go to the moon, but do decently well. That's revenue going back into Palantir's pockets because they have that initial equity stake. And second of all, he's saying they're going to push our product forward. And that's what he's going to dive into a little bit more deeper here. That's the big thing to understand. If these SPACs are using your product and pushing the limits of what the product can do to build their enterprises, well, that's a whole different use case for what the SPAC thesis actually means in the context of Palantir.
Compared to but they're really pushing us to work on. And by the way, it's super inspirational. It's one of the things that's gotten us through the bad times. You were here for a lot of times that were not great. Was our customers were so inspirational. The nice thing about some of these small companies is they're inspirational. They really push us to build things, to do things that we hadn't done before in ways we hadn't thought about, and to deliver value that is not. Maybe not in a way that we had preconceived. So I think it's easy to focus on the biggest customers, and some of our biggest customers are also some of the coolest customers in the world, no doubt. But a lot of these agile kind of custom customers we're interacting with, either because they're buying our software or because they're using our software, they're just under the gun. And they've got to produce products that are, to win as an unknown quantity. We used to run around saying truthfully saying we were 5% of the cost, 1% of the time. I believe this to be still true. So what I would tell any entrepreneur that thinks they're going to disrupt, you have to be 20 times better, at least. So it's if you think you're going to disrupt with some linear kind of, we are better on this axis, but worse on that axis, and it's very linear. That's not a tech business, and you won't disrupt. And so like we shouldn't forget that at Palantir. By the way, it's refreshing to see other people that are living and breathing that, because we cannot afford to ever forget.
So let's talk about that part real quick, and then we'll get back into it. That's another big thing here. These SPACs are relatively unproven companies. They're very small companies. Lilium is trying to make electric jets. And when he says they're super inspirational, I did a video about them the other day because they got a deal for 150 jets from one of the biggest private jet companies in the world. Lilium, the Palantir SPAC, got a deal from the biggest private jet company in the world to make 150 electric jets. It's pretty cool thing, right? And when you see their video, their promotional video with this electric jet actually flying and taking off without using greenhouse gas emissions, right, and oil, I mean, it's inspirational. It's like, goodness, they're trying to do something big. And I don't know if they're going to succeed, but they're trying, and they just got an order for 150 jets, so maybe they can actually do this. And then you see Cellularity, it's using placenta-based stem cell research to do drug discovery to help degenerative diseases, and Foundry is providing the basis for them to be able to make data-driven analyses to actually find patterns in which they can uncover more drugs. And then you have Tritium, which is doing electric charging, and you have Wejo, which is trying to create connected vehicle data for the entire world to innovate on electric vehicles to push us into a more renewable future. There are so many things that are happening, but these companies are not going to compete against all the other startups that are trying to do amazing things in the world of technology unless they have a differentiated value proposition. And companies have various differentiated value propositions, but one of the differentiated propositions that you can have that actually provides value is the tech stack that you're using to optimize your entire business. And all of these SPACs, what Karp is talking about, are using Palantir because they recognize that if they can actually be even 5% better than the other competitor because they're saving time on decisions, or they're making better data-driven decisions because they have better data-driven insights, like, these things matter. And Foundry, as that operating system for these companies, will validate Palantir's use case and make them an industry leader, because the companies they've invested in will become industry leaders as well. So it's really important to understand this concept that the SPACs are relying on Palantir, and they're not innovating, and they're not getting anywhere in the world as a technology company unless they actually are using software that allows them to get there, and Palantir is that software.
If we're not demonstrably better than other people, no one's going to put up with our charming personalities. And that's why you and I get to sit here, here we are sitting, outside of Zurich in Altendorf. We get to really dedicate ourselves to what we care about with a lot of freedoms. Yeah. And it's not, but we only have those freedoms to dedicate ourselves because what we produce is rare and highly differentiated. And no one puts up with us because it's just the same thing as everyone else, but a tiny bit better. Yeah. That's what normal companies can do. Like, so these companies that you don't respect enough because, you look at the quality of some of their, it's like, but they do things that we can't do that. Yeah. We must never try to. Yeah. We will fail. Yeah. They are much, much better at that than we are.
Yeah. One thing I wonder, the SPAC companies though, they're so ahead of these ancient companies that when we help their supply chain problems, it's I can see that it's going to advance our edge a lot. Is it too far ahead of our old companies, or is that inspiration for the client? Is it supposed to serve
people
as
love
future?
To watch people win.
The thing she's asking there is this question of okay, the SPACs are so ahead of these legacy companies that we're trying to convince, hey, you guys have a problem, we have a solution to your problem, but you don't know that's a problem. It's we're trying to convince these legacy clients about these issues. The SPACs are so ahead, they get it immediately. So she's kind of asking, what does that mean for our legacy clients? How are they gonna react when they see all these SPACs that are these small, tiny startups really propelling because of them using our product? How does that help our business writ large?
One of the things about a lot of the best companies in the world, and some of which are older, is they know they have to adapt, and it's watching someone else who's adapting quicker and using our products in ways they haven't thought of will get them to adapt. And that's a good thing for everybody. Yeah. I would say that what's special about the American market in particular is its ability to adapt. It's the adaptability, flexibility of the American market is very special. It's less the high level of competence outside of America is also very special, but the adaptability in America is really unique.
Why is
America so adaptable? I don't know, but it's there's a longer intellectual answer.
So I'll end it there because we can listen to Karp be intellectual all day. I mean, the main reason is because America innovates, they allow free markets, they have this ability to adapt. But what Karp is saying right there is like, look, if like this legacy, tech company that like, I'm just putting an example, even though IBM works with Palantir. Let's say IBM didn't work with Palantir, and this innovative tech company that's trying to do exactly what IBM is doing, it's the new IBM, is working with Palantir. IBM is going to look at that company and be like, oh shoot, they're growing, they're accelerating, they're operating faster, they're productive, they're getting their name out there, and they're using Palantir to power them, just like a lot of legacy companies saw AWS and serverless cloud computing being used by startups, and they were like, we need to get on the cloud. That transition happened. So this argument about SPACs, and this goes back to the SPAC investment thesis, is like, if these SPACs work and these SPACs are able to get things done and their technology truly is 5 years ahead and they're using Palantir to operationalize their businesses, legacy companies are going to see that. They're not dumb. They're going to be like, oh, wait, these SPACs that Palantir invested in 3-4 years ago, they're actually growing, and they used Foundry to grow. That pushes Palantir's product into the mainstream. That means all the other electric charging stations that are competing with Tritium are going to be looking at how Tritium's doing it. Oh, they're doing it because of Palantir. All the other robotics companies that are looking at how Sarkos Robotics are building robotics suits and industrial suits, they're going to be like, oh, wait, they're using Palantir. So it's like, wait a second. Now, all the, legacy drug companies like Pfizer, Moderna, they're like, oh wait, Cellularity, this biotech startup is using Palantir to do drug discovery. Why aren't we using them? So it's easier to sell things to bigger people and get those really multi-million-dollar contracts if you have case studies. And to me, the SPACs are case studies. Now, are they risky case studies? Yes. But in a world in which you're betting on creativity, you're betting on innovation, and you're betting on your own product being able to streamline the businesses and make more efficient and productive the SPAC businesses, it's not that crazy of a risk. It's like a pretty hypothetically calculated sort of idea that if these SPACs are using our software and they're going to win, then we're going to get brand recognition, we're going to get an equity stake, and other legacy manufacturers and other companies that aren't using our software because they're itchy about it and it's hard for us to sell them on it are going to start using it when they see other companies using it, and it's going to work. So the SPAC thesis to me is absolutely intact. It makes a lot of sense. I've done an entire playlist on the companies that Palantir has invested in through SPACs. I would definitely recommend checking those out. When you deep dive into these SPACs, they're not just like one-off BS deals that Palantir put a couple $1 million in. These are real companies doing really innovative things. I don't know if all of them are going to work, but a lot of them have really good potential to work, especially if they've differentiated their value proposition by using Palantir at the core of their technology. So really interesting stuff. I thought it was a good reminder to bring up why Karp and why Palantir did the SPAC strategy in the first place. It adds a whole nother layer and dimension to this company because now there's 14 other companies that affect this company based upon their SPAC investments. But Karp right there in June 2021 talking about why they made the SPAC deals, I think it's important for everyone to recognize ultimately why that was done. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about the SPACs? Looking forward to your comments. I will see you guys in the next one.